Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tagline podcast. I am, of course, your host, the Meerkat Monarch, sometimes known as Jay's Lillevik, and with me today, as always, is my buddy,
Gene the Angry Penguin. And this week we'll be talking about children's films and what makes a good children's film. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, from the ones I watched as a child, it's how viscerally and scared it can teach you a lesson. Uh,
Yeah. You lost a part of the sentence there, but I think most of it got out.
it's one of those days.
And I gotta raise, before we start something, I gotta raise the question: what the hell possessed you to do that kind of a poll? I'd leave you in charge for like a weekend just to do the poll, and that's what you end up with. We almost ended up with rom-coms as a topic.
I was frightened. I really didn't think the poll would go that way. We probably got more votes on that poll than any of our other polls.
Yeah, because our friends are shitlords and people who want to see us suffer. You got to remember that every time you lay out a poll.
And they clearly didn't watch the right movies as children.
Yeah, because I don't mind talking about kids' movies, actually, because it's a lot of my sort of favorite movies are the movies from my childhood. It's the ones that really grabbed me as a kid. Movies like Dark Crystal, for instance, which I love, which kind of plays into what you said about the kind of visceral, but yet a little bit scary, the helpless sort of kid character almost that needs to go out and explore the world in their own kind of way, and there are a lot of factors involved in making a good kids film. And today I was watching Minions because I felt like watching like something really, really, really how do I put this?
Dumb.
Yeah, because it's not intellectually stimulating. It's not the world's most intellectual movie, but it's not a bad movie. I get why people are annoyed at it, because it's based around the premise of building an entire movie based upon a bunch of characters that, well, basically or several variations of one character throughout the entire movie. The different minions, they do not have that much of a personality. I mean, Stuart is the flirty one, and Bob is sort of the kid, but it's still the same type of expressions, the same type of language, the same voice as well. Minions was a bad idea because it's based upon supporting characters and not a fleshed out personality.
I love Despicable Me.
Yeah, I do
the
too.
first one was just great.
Yeah.
But I want back into those things that I watched when a kid, those movies that left that imprint on my soul. The black smudge that is the Chocolate Factory,
Yeah, and since we're 1980s kids, we're talking the Gene Wilder Chocolate Factory, and not that Tim Burton, how should we say, heresy, that was performed in the later years.
Well, and you can kind of see the softening of children's movies, which is a weird sentence. Like if you go back and you watch Gene Wilder in that role,
Yeah,
and at the end of the film, like at the end of the film of Tim Burton's, you see all the kids, a little worse for wear, but they're all leaving the factory.
yeah,
In the Gene Wilder version, the kids are, I don't think they're coming back.
no,
Um, no, because it was a morality play,
yeah,
you know? All the kids' movies used to be some form of morality play,
yeah,
as opposed to something like Minions.
yeah. The perfect one, I think, that I still love and still adore and still watch whenever I have the chance. I should have watched this weekend, but no, this weekend or this week. But I had so much to do after being away for a weekend. The Labyrinth, I think, is the perfect type of morality play. It's the kind of whiny, kind of self-obsessed girl that has lost her place as the main sort of person in her parents' life for this new kid. This I think he's a half brother, if I don't misremember
It,
completely.
it, it has been a while, tragically long time since I've
Yeah,
seen the movie. Um, you know, and I'm gonna say this real quick. Pretty much, if you haven't seen any of the films we list, that's the recommendation for this week. If somehow you missed any of these, if you missed
yeah,
the Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or Labyrinth, or Dark Crystal, or Never-Ending Story, if you missed any of those, definitely you got some catching up to do.
yeah. There's a bunch of things that you need to watch if you. Yes, I realize, Evil. I'm sorry. I fucked up the dates. God damn it.
It isn't just me who
Yeah,
screws up.
yeah. It's not just you. It's me as well. But yeah, the idea of having, you know, I know that it's really easy to sort of look back at the years gone by and say that, oh yeah, our kids movies were way better. I mean, we had some shitty films as well growing up, but they were still kind of out there concepts. They weren't I mean, you had movies like Bigfoot and the Hendersons.
Harry and the Hendersons.
Harry and the Hendersons, that's right. Always mess that up. And it's not a great movie, but it's still kind of cool and kind of fun to rewatch. And also, Problem Child was also a movie released in it was in our childhood, but it was also early youth. And those were also the same type of deal. And also Home Alone, man, that was the same type of period. And yeah, but the ones that I truly love, the ones that really branded themselves on me, were the 80s ones. It was the ones that I was kind of not allowed to watch because they sort of broached a they broached subjects that my mom didn't necessarily like, and the giant. I can remember the enormous David Bowie bulge being a problem for my mom when I was growing up, because she did not want me to watch. She did not. I had a vivid imagination as a kid, and I watching fantasy films often brought out the worst type of nightmares for me. So I was not allowed to watch The Labyrinth for various reasons, but I still did it because The Labyrinth, Neverending Story, Dark Crystal, those type of movies. They are great. And one thing that I think, especially Labyrinth, but also Neverending Story, is the fact that the grown-ups are believable. They're not silly, but they seem preoccupied with other things than paying attention to what their kids are doing. You know?
Yeah. And I think that might just be a generational difference between the writers, and you had, the people that wrote those films. They didn't, helicopter parenting wasn't as big a thing when they were kids, and they grow up to write this film about their parents who were probably busy with work
Yeah.
and, you know, them escaping into their imagination. And now you've got kind of the generation of people who grew up that had it a bit different. The parents had a bit more free time and, are around a bit more. So you have kind of the sillier, lighter, a little bit more protected
Yeah.
view in the movies. Like, I think for me, when it comes to, I don't think even some of the good, great movies that are coming out for kids, except maybe a couple of the Pixar things, are going to have the staying power that some of the 80s films did. And that's not just me throwing out the everything was better in my youth card there.
No
Ren.
no sort of
Uh,
nostalgia. It's yeah. I get your point, but I still
well,
say that yeah.
Well, I can go back and I can watch I'm going to harp on the Neverending Story a bit because that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I can go back and I can watch that and look at some of the concepts, the idea of this world being destroyed and the kid dealing with his grief, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of things going on, and some of the concepts like the Gomork,
Yeah.
and the nothing. Uh,
Yeah.
that's actually kind of frightening even for an adult to think about in some ways. You
Especially
have like,
the nothing, I think, is a concept that is it's it's kind of fundamental to wipe out all existence or wipe out all imagination and all new thinking. That's kind of
yeah,
scary. That's a scary concept, especially for me who's a creator. It's it's the
what?
and I think that's why it hits so well, because it's such a fundamental fear.
Well, and you have the Gomork sitting there, and he even tells him, it's like, he's like, "Why are you helping this thing?" It's like, it's because uh, scared people are easy to control, and if you can't dream, you're easier to scare.
Yeah.
And it tells a little bit more of a, I guess, overarching theme than some of the other things. Where with, like, you see it in some of the Pixar films, like in Up and
Yeah.
Wall-E. You've got those themes. You've got kind of the deeper narrative running through it, and they're telling more than just a fun story for kids. It is a fun story for kids,
Yeah.
but at the same time, they are telling an adult story as a children's adventure story.
Yeah, and the thing is that movies like the problem I have with a lot of kids movies these days is that they don't take that chance and doing a big budget live action thing, and they don't play around with concepts anymore. I mean, The Hobbit was that, but still, it was so tangentially. It was kind of removed from the original piece, so it didn't really work as in the same way. But that might be different as well. I mean, there might be kids 20 years from now sitting on a podcast talking about how the three Hobbit movies changed their life, and kids' movies nowadays are just shit. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I just don't see it happening. One, I think the Hobbit movies are a great cinematic sin, or literary sin more than a cinematic one. Um, because they're well-made movies. There's no questioning that. I just think it did not do that a children's book justice.
Yeah.
You take a story written for children. Well, it's the same thing with, like I was talking about, with the Never-Ending Story.
Yeah.
It's a story about kids, written for kids, with these more adult themes of life. They're not even
Yeah.
adult themes. They're themes everybody has to deal with.
Yeah.
Kind of woven in there, but in such a way that you're presenting it to a child. And The Hobbit was kind of like that. It's the bedtime story version of Lord of the Rings, you
Yes.
know?
And
And
it's more of, and I don't think that they focus enough on that theme of this very homely character that kind of is used to his life in his little hole, and needs to go out and explore and find his way again, and or grow as a person, well become more adventurous, basically.
well, and the thing was, he was supposed to, instead of him being there and being this sillier character, going out and adventuring for the first time and having these fun adventures,
Yeah.
and then being presented with some seriousness when the dwarves were basically, they made it back to their home and they have some serious moments here and there. But instead of, that being him learning about taking that not all adventure is just fun and games, that, you know,
Yeah.
some people are on different kinds of journeys. They didn't tell that story.
No, they told far more. I'm not sure what kind of story they actually told with Bilbo in the Hobbit movies. It's very it was a very weird version of what I remember was one of the most seminal books I read at that age. You know, the
It
sort of
was it
10
was
to
Lord of the
13.
Hobbits. I
Yeah.
mean, it was almost like he did a find and replace with the Lord of the Rings skits
Yeah.
or scripts. You know,
Yeah, and I think also there's another literary series that I love that got the same type of treatment from Disney in the Narnia books. I felt that also kind of missed the mark, not in the first film, but in the following sequels. They didn't sort of renew it. They just rehashed the same type of themes that they had in the first movie. And it seems like they think that it's just kids. Let's just release something to them because yeah, they're
well, and
kids, they're silly, they'll buy anything, they'll buy any toy. So yeah.
and it's kind of a tragedy with those, because those movies and those books are explorations of, faith and, you know, the ideas about humanity, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of different good versus evil. There's a lot of really nuanced ideas floating around in those books, and they just get, nah, dragons.
Yeah.
Just throw dragons.
Let's give him dragons, a talking lion, and then some other talking animals, and that will be fine. That'll be enough. And it kind of drives me insane. You need to have a balance of characters as well. But I mean, look at one of my favorites, The Labyrinth. I know I talked briefly about it in the beginning, but It's definitely one of my favorites. And the party that the lovely Jennifer Connelly walks around with in that movie, it's it's the perfect type of kids meld. You have the silly sort of grumpy character that everybody, everybody loves him because he tells everybody the truth, but there's something very kind in him that you're waiting for his heart of gold to show. And
Well,
and
and
and and you also have the silly over heroic fox who is this sort of very lost in time type of character.
well, it's the archetypes,
Yeah.
and archetypes used really well, and with enough of a twist on it to fit the universe they're creating.
Yeah.
And like we were saying, I think what a lot of kids' films are missing. I hate to put it this way, but they don't have a soul.
Yeah.
Uh, well, let's take one of the newer ones. Everybody wants a sequel for it. The Incredibles.
Yeah.
Not a new film anymore. It's like what almost how old is it now?
Uh, yeah. It's. I think it's 2004, 2005. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but look at that movie. Take that movie, see if you can stretch it out in your memory. And there are some really poignant scenes in this funny kids action movie.
Yeah.
There's the mom trying to explain to her kids that there are people out there that just want to hurt you.
Yeah.
You know, they don't care anything about you. There's just these people out there wanting to hurt you, and it's about the family, and there's all this subtext and a real soul to it that made you really, kind of get with the characters on where they are. you
Yes.
know, with the dad thinking his family was taken from him and just losing it and having it doesn't matter how super strong he is, he couldn't handle that idea,
No.
you know?
Yeah. That there are a lot of and that's what I'm saying. There are a lot of good themes in the Pixar and the kind of new animation type of dealies. It's just that they get rehashed so much that you grow tired of them. The never-ending Ice Age sequels, the Shrek sequels, the sort of bleeding everything out of every stone that you can find. And I know what you're gonna say. Yeah, Never-Ending Story had a sequel. Yes, but it wasn't that sucky. It wasn't the same shit over and over again.
Well, and it did have a noticeable drop in quality from the first film,
Yes, that is
and
very true.
they didn't then go ahead and make a third one.
Well,
You know, I think it goes back to one of the themes we keep running into on this podcast, and it's just the nature of Hollywood right now is not a creative one. There's not saying there's not creativity out there. There's great stuff being done. But I think the major studios and everybody, they want to bet big money and they want to bet it's safe.
yeah,
You know, they're not uh, and definitely not a kids film, but Deadpool, $50 million bet paid off huge. But studios want to make Ghostbusters relatively safe bet on $150 million budget for some reason. You
yeah,
know, it they're not. I just don't think they're very smart with their money, to be honest. And they're relying too heavy on CG, where all the best stuff from the 80s and before, you had other creatives
you
involved.
had what we call um, you know live effects.
Yeah.
Basically, it wasn't computer generated effects. It was more makeup, more on scene type of effects.
Yeah, and the practical effects, and it's I don't want to denigrate, the work uh, CGI artists do. They do some incredible work, but it works when the people behind it are also that kind of artist, I think. Like with the old Pixar films and Wall-E, you could tell that the people making it understood the crafting with the tools they had, with the CG animation. And they used that to its full effect. And they were probably working fairly closely with the modelers and the artists, which I think a lot of the studios, what they do is they ship it off to some other company and they say, here, you need to make this dragon look like this.
Yeah.
And it's not a back and forth between the team that's creating it, that you may have some guy modeling a dragon and he goes, hey, what if we add this particular look because of this story element y'all are talking about?
Yeah.
You know?
There might not be as much backstory between between the characters behind it, and I realize that you can't really throw everything on throw everything in the bin when we're talking about redoing things. I mean, Dragon Trainer, or How to Train a Dragon. It's not a bad version, even though it uses the forbidden word. Um, so it's a balancing act, and I realize that I think that once the new technology is sort of more common and more usable, you will have the type of great stories coming to the forefront and recapturing the imagination of people.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I want to see the current studio system kind of shudder at its base for a bit.
Yeah. It
And
would be wonderful.
well, I mean, you got the studios that have got the safe bets, and
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I think I'm getting just sick of comic book movies. And I
Yeah.
feel kind of wrong saying it because there's still a bunch of characters and things I still want to see. We got Doctor Strange later this year. We got Black Panther coming out.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of good stuff. I can't wait for I hope it's still a thing that's happening, but the Punisher series on Netflix.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's a saturation point, isn't there? There
yeah.
there is there is this point where you grow a little bit tired of the same spectacle, and especially when they release like 3 movies in the same universe during the same year, and then just try to get you to care about the characters. It's it would be the same. I would have the same reaction if Star Wars released 3 movies every year, even though it wasn't the same storyline. If you had every year, you would get a new kind of episode, and then you would get 2 standalone movies as well.
Well, it sounds like they're trying to make that dream come true.
Yeah, and I realized just as I said that they're gonna do that, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh God. Anyways, yeah, I think we have a recipe for the perfect kids movie, and that is treat kids with a bit more respect. Realize that they're not just product selling machines. They also really like good stories with universal themes in them, and try and make every character believable. Don't just have silliness for silliness. Do it properly.
Yeah, don't. I really do think the biggest fault in the modern children's film is selling children short
Yeah,
and not assuming that an 8 or 9 year old can't enjoy something that also has some serious moments and maybe a little scary moment here and there,
yeah,
you know? Because they're growing up. That's part of life. They need to see this. And if we tell them about it in little bits as they get older, it's a little bit easier to accept when you get to adulthood. And,
yeah. You
you
have to
know,
grind away and watch as your soul slowly dies, as your dreams drift away into the wind. Oh, I'm
well,
sorry. That was really melancholic of me.
well, I think of it this way. And I know we have to end in just a second, but
Yeah,
I think of it this way. Look at the kids, the camp counselors in a Friday the 13th movie.
yeah,
Those are the type of people who grew up watching Minions.
yeah.
They have no idea what's happening in the real world. Completely oblivious to the dangers around them.
Yeah.
So don't let your children watch Minions unless you want them cut to pieces while having sex in a camp.
By either Jason Voorhees or his mother.
Yeah, the next film's supposed to focus on his father, I hear.
Oh God, let's not get into that.
I can feel the taste of a barrel in my mouth.
Oh. Next week, I thought we would focus on directors, so I'll run a poll of some select directors that I feel that we need to discuss. And people get to vote on that, and we get to have another show with directors this time. But as I'm sucky at ending this, why won't you take it away, bro?
All right. Well, thank y'all for tuning in to the Tagline podcast with me, Gene the Angry Penguin, and Jan the Meerkat Monarch, who you can find on the Unsolicited Opinions podcast on Friday, along with Dr. Edithville, Artemis Ira, and then just a slew of the regulars. All right. Well, thank y'all for tuning in, and y'all have a great day. We'll see you next week.
Bye.